Hello class and welcome back to online learning session 3. Before we begin with today's lecture, we're going to have a few talking points, some updates from our previous learning. I wanted to talk about some missing work that I've been seeing. There's a couple of students in every period that's missing a few of the Edpuzzles, and I think what's happening is that you guys are just going onto Google Classroom and starting on the last updated material, and in reality there's a couple of other assignments that have been posted. So I just wanted to kind of take this time really quickly to kind of go over what has already been posted previous to what we're going to be covering today. So the first was the online learning guide, which was a quick 5-minute video going over how we were going to learn with this online learning methods with these videos and Edpuzzles that I'll be posting. The next was the basis of the unit of sharks, which was just characteristics and vocabulary. It's kind of the foundation of all the words that we would be using. And then the following week was, which is last week, was shark form and function, and this was getting into the adaptations that certain sharks have that's a little bit different from a lot of other ones that we've spoken about throughout the year and how they use them. And then today we're going to be talking about skates and rays, and skates and rays are most easily related to sharks as being kind of like their cousins. They're within the same family. So in a phylogenetic tree, sharks, which fall under Chondrichthyes, they have a subdivision among them known as elasmobranchs, which are the skates and rays, and we'll be talking a little bit about them in this lecture. But let's first kind of talk about the things we were updating before. And so today we're also going to bring about Edgenuity, which is a software that we're going to be utilizing to further learn a few more things in aquatic science and environmental science. The Edgenuity software is really going to be looking more at a holistic view of the environment. So in these lectures, you're learning about specific animals and specific adaptations and really, really unique things that each of those animals has. Whereas in Edgenuity, you're going to be learning about the global scale of things. You're going to be looking at climate, pollution, populations, and biomes, really the environments that these organisms are going to be within. And I'll be going over that at the end of this video a little bit more. Next week, we're going to try to have a live session. We're going to try to have a Kahoot game. The way I ideally plan to have this is to separate you into teams. So I want to organize teams within the periods, and then everyone logs in a live session, and we basically test your knowledge on sharks. I've prepared, I think, about 40 Kahoot questions to see what you guys have gained within these past few weeks of doing these online lectures. So you're welcome to go back through these videos. You're welcome to look through the slides to kind of prepare yourself so that way your period ends up on top. And finally, let's kind of talk a little bit about what we've learned so far. So the first week, we talked about shark characteristics and vocabulary. We learned about some of the vocabulary in the prefixes, suffixes, and roots, like ovo meaning egg and vivi meaning life, and we'll be using those today as well. Shark form and function, it's really important that during this lecture you realize that rays and skates, which again are related to sharks, are a subgroup. They all have the same adaptations that sharks have. Everything that we've talked about, skates and rays are also going to have that, and it's really important to remember that as we go through this lecture. So let's go ahead and get started with skates and rays today. So what are skates and rays? So they are closely related to sharks. They are dorso-ventrally flattened, dorso meaning back and ventral meaning front. Flattened means that they're compressed from the back to the front. Skates, rays, and sharks together are members of the class Chondrichthyes and a subclass called elasmobranchs. So elasmobranchs, let's talk about that. One of the two subclasses of the class Chondrichthyes, the other subclass is called Holocephali, and so there are only two surviving species of this group, the Holocephali. Elasmobranchs possess all of the characteristics that we have previously discussed. So the oldest fossil examples of rays and skates date back to approximately 150 million years ago, and this is during the Jurassic. And so which came first, the shark or the skate? So let's look a little deeper into this. So the oldest fossil examples of rays and skates date back approximately 150 million years. So this means that they evolved almost 250 million years after the first sharks, because sharks date back to 400 million years. And if you look at this phylogenetic tree, you can see where those chondrichthyes are, where they branch off here. And then there are two subgroups of the elasmobranchi, the ones that we're going to be talking about today, and the other that have only two remaining specimens in the holocephali. All right, so variety. There are approximately 500 known species of skates and rays in the world today. Groups include stingrays, a larger group containing a number of species with similar characteristics like the manta rays, eagle rays, and sawfish. And you can see those here, manta ray, eagle ray, and sawfish. So now let's go over some of the ways that we can tell them apart. So let's look at reproduction. Skates are going to be oviparous. Oviparous means, ovi means egg, and parous means birth. So they lay these mermaid's purses, and these are their version of an egg, right? Inside they're going to have a yolk, and a baby skate is going to hatch. And rays are going to be ovoviviparous, ovovit meaning egg, and vivi meaning life, and birth is parous. So what this means is that inside of these rays, they're going to have these mermaid's purses inside of them, and they're going to hatch from those mermaid's purses from within them, and then they're going to come out living. Dorsal fins. So skates almost always have a distinct dorsal fin as seen in this image here. And rays usually have a vestigial or no dorsal fin. Vestigial meaning like a remnant, an ancestral remnant. You can see this little ridge on the back where there is no distinct dorsal fin, but just a vestigial dorsal fin. Pelvic fins have two lobes, so this is one set of pelvic fins, and this is a second set. Here you have the claspers, which are the reproductive organs for the males, and so all of this will constitute the pelvic fin. Rays are going to only have a single lobe, as shown on this picture right here. And so one thing that's unique about these pelvic fins for skates is that they use them kind of as little kind of paddles to kind of skate on the floor of the ocean. So they kind of use the back ones as elevation, and the wings will just kind of move over the sand as they're making their way. Skates have thick, fleshy tails that lack spines for protection. So this is important. Fleshy tails that lack spines. And rays are going to have thin, whip-like tails with one or more spines. So possibility of multiple spines, thin and whip-like. For protection, skates have thorny spines on their backs. So they have a single spine at the mid-body and a single row of spines along the back. One of the things that I want you to note about this picture is how there's a line that you can draw from the tip of the pectoral fin to the snout. And so this straight line really helps with being able to define a skate from a ray. Rays are going to have stinging spines, and you can see the spine still attached here and some other spines here. So they're stinging spines on their tails for protection. Skates have small teeth, more like those of a shark, and they have rows of them. And rays are going to have large flat teeth that are used for crushing prey rather than tearing like a shark. In terms of size, skates are typically smaller than rays. This is going to be a large example of a skate. And rays are typically larger than skates. Here you can see this freshwater ray that's been put into a pool so they can measure and see how large it is. Skates are usually, but not always, a drab or brown or gray. And rays usually, but not always, have bolder patterns like this eagle ray. Skates are often found in deep water, but there are species that live in shallow waters. Rays are often found in shallow coastal waters, but there are some deep water species. So let's kind of check to see if you were listening. Looking at this image, do you see a skate or a ray? And if you said skate because it has a triangular shaped body, it has a defined dorsal fin, and a relatively thick and spineless tail, then you are correct. What about this one? Would you say it's a skate or a ray? And if you said ray, you are correct because it has a broad-shaped body, it has no dorsal fin, and it has a thin tail tipped with a spine. So here you can see this is just showing some of the ways that you can tell them apart. This is everything that we've discussed during this lecture today. We see that in reproduction, skates are oviparous, rays are viviparous, ovoviviparous, and the dorsal fin, they have a distinct one in skates, and in rays you don't. 2 lobes in the skates and 1 lobe in the ray. They have fleshy tails in the skates and a whip-like one in the rays. They have small teeth in the skates and they have plate-like ones in the rays. Skates are usually smaller and rays are a bit larger. For color, skates are going to be drab or brown, whereas rays are going to have bold patterns. So let's go through a few more things that we can tell them apart by. You can have 2 dorsal fins that have a thick tail and bucklers, these little dots here, and they also have 2 lobes in the pelvic fin. Rays are going to have 1 pelvic fin and a whip-like tail with a spine. And so here are some questions that I want you guys to quickly go through. We're going to kind of try to run through these together as quickly as possible. So what is the scientific name for the great white? Roughly, when did skates and rays evolve from sharks? Sharks, skates, and rays are all members of what group? Name 3 identifying features of skates and name 3 identifying features of rays. Alright, so before we leave today, I wanted to make sure we talked again. I wanted you guys to remember to check your Google Classroom for updates. Edgenuity will be starting next week, so try signing in this week to make sure you log in. Your login works. The way you can log in is by putting in the first 3 letters of your first name in caps, the last 4 of your social, just like the way this example is of mine. Password is first 4 letters of your last name in caps, and the last 4 of your social with a money sign. And again, this really isn't my sign up, guys. This is just an example. I have a completely different one. Zoom live session for next week. We're not going to have an Edpuzzle, so no video next week like this one. We're just going to try to meet up in person or in video. We're going to try to have a game. And remember that Edgenuity is going to try to focus on a bit different things, not organisms like the way we are in this one. It's going to be more about their environment, maintaining the environment, climate changes, pollution, things like that. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you next week. Have a good week.